can you explain the deity hierarchy? The first ones, the Titans, gods of death, and the wild gods, etc. Yes. So, hang on. Lore time. It's lore time, everybody. Get out your notebooks. Yeah? It's time for school. Hierarchy of the deities. I think you can barely hear the in-game music, but that's alright. It's a little bit there. The first ones are a little bit unknown. First ones are introduced in the Shadowlands, and they didn't stay in the Shadowlands. There's definitely a book that they added in Dragonflight in the Uldaman revamp that also mentions the first ones. But in essence, the first ones are these mysterious cosmic force. And we don't know what they've done. We just know that they played a very critical role in the formation of the universe. Some say that they brought the cosmic powers together. Some say that they are the cosmic powers. Some say that they gave up a portion of their powers. But in essence, the first ones have been given credit for making the domains. So you have the domain of light and the domain of void. You got the domain of order and disorder. You got the domain of life and you got the domain of death. And it's said that the first ones were the ones who created those domains. Basically give birth to the Warcraft universe. Although in their research, they did mention, like, did they create it or did they simply bring it together? So in a similar vein of, was it a Big Bang or did they just bring together those powers, those realms already there, right? We don't know. And a whole lot about the first ones is very much like it's point of view, it's speculation, it's we do not know. Beyond that, there's another origin point of the Warcraft universe, which is the Big Bang, which is, in the beginning, there was light and there was void, and these cosmic forces clashed with each other. From their clashing, there came the Warcraft universe. Or, if we go even further back, there was the origin story of it was created by a single entity. Let there be light, right? So there's multiple origin points of the Warcraft universe. Beyond that, the power scaling is a little bit fluctuating, is a little bit like, okay, who belongs where? So these are basically the entities of, okay, are they responsible for creating the universe? Then the domains seem to be having their pantheons, basically. So in the Shadowlands domain, we have seen the Eternal Ones. So we've seen the Winter Queen, we've seen Sire Denethrius, we've seen the Primus, we've seen the Arbiter, we've seen Kairestia the Firstborn, like the Angel Lady from Bastion. They are the pantheon of death, the Eternal Ones. Whereas with the Titans, we've seen the pantheon of order, right? So we've seen an Amatul, and we've seen an Aeonar, and we've seen... answer name. Come on. Sargeras, of course, and Sargeras at his side, there was... I'm confusing with the Keepers. There were the Titans. Aeonar, Amantul, Agramar, Kaskarov, Sargeras. And I think those were the ones. Right. So those are the pantheon of order. From that, you're wondering, like, okay, if there's a pantheon for death and there's a pantheon of order, does that mean that life, void, light, and disorder also have pantheons? We do not know. We do not know. There's also the question about why are the Titans in the physical universe? Why are they not stuck in the domain of order, similar to how the Eternal Ones were stuck in the domain of death? We don't know that either. Below that, we've seen... So for other domains, before we go below that, for other domains, we have seen entities. So for example, you could imagine that the goddess Elune, right, might be a keeper of the domain of life. Or the Naru, they might be the pantheon of part of the pantheon of light. Or the old gods, they might be part of the pantheon of disorder. The pantheon of void. But at the same time, we know that the old gods' origin, they come from the Void Lords. So maybe the Void Lords are a better point for the domain of void, right? So that each domain has like the little thing. So speaking of the old gods are a step below the Void Lords. And the old gods are basically what the Void Lords were able to manifest into the physical universe. So the Void Lords really wanted to be in our universe. They could not be, so they just pooled the powers together and they shot out the old gods in order to corrupt the Titans that were slumbering in planets. In a similar vein, the Titans created the Titan Keepers. That couple of them we still see on Azeroth. So you got like Raden, Keeper Tyr, Keeper Odin. There was Sorceress Helya. There were like a whole bunch of keepers we dealt with. They're created by the Titans. And then those keepers created Titan Forged. So the Vrykul, the Mechanomes, the Urvan, the Sphinx people from Uldir, which are called the Tolvir. Good job, Brain. So those were like a tier below the keepers again. And they were then hit with the curse of flesh from the old gods, which started to make them devolve and get flesh. And then the Vrykul became the humans, the Mechanomes became the gnomes, the Urvan became the dwarves, right? Like there's the whole system. But that's kind of the power of deities and whatnot in the Warcraft universe, as far as we know. Then the question about the wild gods. Where do the wild gods fall? And that's a good question. So if we imagine something like the goddess Elune be like... the goddess Elune be like part of the pantheon of life, right? Which is on its own already speculation. And we know that she got together with like a Malorn. And with the union of Elune and Malorn, Malorn is like this... I don't want to call him a goat Loa, but that's probably the easiest way to remember him. He's like the big stag Loa, I should say. From their union came Cenarius, right? Cenarius was like this big badass nature wielder. So... does that mean that the wild gods, which Malorn definitely would be, is he on par with Elune? Because that would put the wild gods on par with the pantheon of life, right? But I don't know. They seem to be more like the keepers to me. Or maybe there's a different degree amongst the wild gods. Maybe some wild gods would be closer to an Elune and some other wild gods would be closer to the keepers. Maybe. So yeah. Maybe Elune and the Winter Queen are the duality pantheon of life leaders. Well, the Winter Queen would be for, like, the duality between them. So the Winter Queen would be the Shadowlands one, the Death one, and then indeed Elune would be the Life one. So that's kind of how they would be calling themselves sisters, beyond the idea of life and death are just related to each other, like the whole cycle. But then, to make it even more complicated, in the Shadowlands, like where we are right now, they started explaining, like, where the Eternal Ones came from. So we know from the Titans that, you know, the Titans are the Titans. It's an entity that was kind of born in the universe. We don't know where they came from. They seem to be sleeping at planets and then waking up and whatnot. But these Eternal Ones that they came up with for the Shadowlands, they made it so they come out of a machine. And then it brings up questions like, okay, do they have a soul? Where does their personality come from? Why can you make new ones? Could we, in essence, make new Titans? Because Titans to us are basically gods, right? So if we got the keepers in the Shadowlands that can just be pumped out of these machines, does that mean you can make Titans out of a machine? Like, but you know, that's diving into Shadowlands, ain't it?